Why, hello, friends. So nice to see you. My name's Host Eric, and I'm the host of the internet's wildest and wackiest show, and one of the most exciting, adventurous, and just out there experiences you'll ever have. That's right, I'm talking about talking with famous people. That's where you are now if you're here. If you're not here now, you will be later when you see this. If you see this, which you must in order to hear it. These are true things that define our reality. Now, tonight I'd like to talk about the subconscious mind. First, let me start with a little anecdote to set the table. So, what happened was I had to poo and the cat kept meowing at me. So I thought naturally, okay, probably the cat wants to go inside and go to bed. And I need to poo. I had no problem with your username. For God's sake, Jack, Bobby Brown, whatever you want to call yourself, what makes you think it's a good idea to come in here and just start shitting again? Goodbye. Okay. God, you're so whiny. Okay. What was I talking about? Right. I'm going to set the table with an anecdote. That's what we're going to do. So, anyhow, I had to poo, and the cat was meowing at me. It seemed to me the cat wanted probably to go inside the house, and I still think she did, although she's back out here with me. She wanted us both to go inside the house, though, and for me to go to bed. That's what she wanted, and now she's determined I'm not going to stay in there. She didn't want to stay in there either because she wants to go to bed with me for some reason. Anyhow, or it could just be she wanted me to go outside because there's an animal out there and she's keeping an eye on or something. Regardless, I went inside to poop, and as I was passing Rachel, who was asleep, she was listening to something on the phone. She often listens to stuff as she goes to sleep, and probably it's on autoplay because it'll often be whenever I go in there, it'll be playing, So, I'm assuming it's more than one video. It's probably on autoplay. Regardless, she's listening to a video about the subconscious mind, quote unquote. And it was interesting hearing what these people were saying about it as I was walking through the room because one of the guys said, one guy was interviewing the other. And the interviewer said, now, if it's so, as you say, that the subconscious mind is the 800-pound gorilla in the room, then what are we trying to do here, basically? And the answer was, we are trying to bring together our conscious mind, desires and such, with our unconscious mind, or subconscious mind, which presumably comprises the things you do despite yourself in some regard. So, I thought it was an interesting topic because, of course, in cognitive functions we talked about unconscious, not subconscious. And subconscious basically refers to unintentional behavior. Usually parts of affect or display they can't be attributed to a specific intention, but they're accidentally revealed, perhaps. So, or it may not be revealed to external parties at all, but if they are, the external party then can be aware of it, but the person actually manifesting that behavior is not aware of it, then that behavior would be called subconscious. whether it's a word behavior or something else. So the idea then being floated by these people in this interview was that was that we're sort of led around by our subconscious mind into betraying our conscious mind's will in some fashion. Of course, I get that an individual might be in conflict with their own performance or behavior in some regard. Like, I should have done a better job, or I really need to try super hard at this, it's important, or something like that. But, but I'm not quite sure if this idea of a subconscious self, this driving the person with desires they're not aware of, is either true, really makes a lot of sense, or follows it all from the fact that sometimes people display subconscious aspects in their behavior. As I defined it, it is absolutely true that individuals, you can say, engage in subconscious stuff, which means to say, like, if somebody has a habit of going like this with their hair a lot, when they're doing it, it's just muscle memory, habit, reflex. It's not really something they're thinking about or aware of. You might call that kind of thing subconscious. When I'm bouncing my knees, that's a subconscious behavior, as I'm defining it. But the question is, does that mean there's a subconscious mind? I would argue no. It means that, well, I mean, it links to your cognitive function stack. Of course, if you're evaluating these questions without, hello, good mother, I'm glad you're a good mother. Bad mother was here earlier, but I had to kick her out because she kept abusing her child. Anywho, what was I talking about? I don't remember. Bobby Brown's comments are making me mad. I'm going to remove them. I don't want to look at them. Talk about a sensitive. They're always giving grief, but anytime he gets any, it's like, harumph. Anyhow, subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is a conscious find in the sense that people in psychology who talk about it, they are referring to an actual phenomenon in some sense. Like, this is basically subconscious until I thought about it right there. It was subconscious for a while. I didn't do this on purpose. I just naturally put my arm like this. Well, why? The fact that particular kind of thing is subconscious is suggestive that my sensory body awareness kind of attentions are less frontward than my bodily sensory attentions. And that's the thing that video isn't accounting for at all, is if you're going to deduce a subconscious mind from the fact that there are subconscious behaviors, then you'd want to show that, in fact, those behaviors somehow represented wants, desires, or something else that you weren't aware of, not just that they manifested in viewable aspects of affect that you're clearly not aware of doing, right? that doesn't necessarily mean you're not aware of an underlying desire. So I'm aware of the fact that I like to do this. I'm well aware of the fact that I do this. But many times when I'm doing it, I'm not aware of it. And I'm aware of why I do this to some extent. It's kind of like comfortable wombing kind of a thing. I'm not sure exactly why, but I am aware that I do it, you know. So in that regard, it doesn't represent a subconscious desire for return to the womb. It just represents a way in which I am attending to parts of myself that don't require a lot of meaning attention. So there's not really any particular reason to sort of metacognate the existence of the phenomenon. So what do you think an INTJ would do if people won't listen to them? I don't think INTJs necessarily expect people to listen to them. I don't think INTJs have a lot of faith in other people. I think in general they probably experience most of all people failing to listen to them and making things difficult on some sort of social grounds when by listening to the INTJ this wouldn't have happened, right? Or yeah, it would have happened. And by meow, I mean something fantastic. But it was very important to the INTJ that people listen to them. I suspect they'd plan the conversation at some point and know how and why they wanted to approach it going into it. You know what I mean? If you wanted to, like, somebody like C.S. Joseph really likes to collapse down his analysis to, like, how you should work on yourself, right? But if you meaningfully wanted to collapse down analysis about functions into something useful, what you'd say is, here's how you convince each of the types of things. Because each type is susceptible to different kinds of arguments. And, I mean, it's like, when you're trying to tell people, well, here's what an ISTP needs to do to grow or something. Then that's not meaningfully, then that's rendering something particular in the wrong direction. In other words, if you want to know, if you want advice about how to convince the meow 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 in your life, I'm a good person to ask. But I'm probably not a good person to ask to actually do it for you, right? In that instance, knowledge is useful because it's applied to a specific task, not to a person. Your job is, in that instance, in other words, there's a TE framework that's real instead of imaginary. People change over time. People grow. People become more or less optimal, etc. But it's fundamentally misguided to think that one does that because one works on oneself. A self isn't something that you can work on per se. It's something that occurs by existing through time. So it's like whatever existence you're doing, that's not you working on yourself, that's you being yourself. Whether it's a good or a bad way to be yourself, well, it is true that optimization of self can occur. How much that results from actively attending to trying to optimize, I have questions about. Because I doubt that occurs very much. Maybe a little bit, like TE people or something. But for me, like, growth occurs naturally and unavoidably as I'm not looking. Over time, as I encounter more people and have more more nuanced exchanges with them, and become more comfortable with just who I am, I guess. You know, it's like, for reasons I said before about actualizing externally, the more I externalize, the more opportunity I have to become a better person. Or the more push on me there naturally will be to become a better person. It's naturally going to shape me into being a better person because it's like the way of the guru for the ENTP, or the guru's advice to the ENTP is always going to be validate on FE grounds. It's going to be the best advice ever. Maybe have a look at a video from Sam Barker called Why We Are Doomed. He explains what I've been talking about on my channel for the last year. I know the solution. Okay, well, give me a quick nutshell of why we're doomed. What's the mechanism? I mean, the thing is, I'll tell you right now, good mother, I reject your NI certainty about this state of affairs. I mean, I'm here. I'm counteracting wrongness at every turn. And part of my message is an affirmation as well as just a negation, which is to say, I affirm that cognitive functions are the metaframe that everybody needs to understand people, the world, and how we interact with one another, and that ultimately what needs to be done is to have somebody with a visible enough pulpit to say the right narratives in the right political sphere in order to change the way the whole world talks and thinks about things. From a TE person, you can't optimize self if you're FE polar. What the fuck does that mean? It's ridiculous. Everybody optimizes in a way specific to their stack. So it's insane to say that some type can't improve themselves. It's ridiculous. There are various ways in which you can improve yourself. It don't involve trying to improve a cognitive function, okay? Like, for me, improving myself means being nicer, kinder, more inclusive, less abrasive, more aware of what people like and trying to provide it to them, less strewing a bunch of shit out that I want to strew out and hope somebody likes it, and more strewing out shit that other people like, makes me a more optimal person fundamentally. I mean, it does. Look, the thing is, ultimately, not necessarily at any given moment. So it's like, there's been a long phase of my life where I really needed this spew opportunity of YouTube to just, all right? But I'm not that way with uploads anymore. I just use live streams to do that. And so it certainly is the case that I would be better served. Well, it's not improving a tertiary function. It's upholding its value better. It's not like I ever lacked the capacity to be charming or endearing or nice or whatever. It's just, you kind of have to make a decision, I guess, that you want bigger level rewards. And then you end up, if you make that decision and follow through on it, then it's going to lead you, if you're third slot FE, to better FE. If it's going to lead you, if you're third slot FI, to better FI. What in the world is going on up there? Sounds like a chase scene from a movie. Yeah, so it's not improving your tertiary, although it might appear like that from a third party's perspective. I've noted as I've optimized, and I would not say that there's a causal relationship in either direction here, but as I've optimized, I have become more comfortable with my own emotions, although I'm still very uncomfortable with them if it's the kind of thing that I feel like, okay, emotional distress alert, and I can't resolve it one way or the other. I can get very, like, ah. Um, but in general, I respect feeling. I respect not only my own feelings, but other people's feelings as well. A lot more than I used to. I'll never be anything but bipolar. I'll never be dullest. I'll never think about how my video is going to impact the 6 people who aren't INFPs in my INFP video, like he did, you know. But actualization can only occur once you open your mind and heart to Chef Jaw's typological counterpart. Who's Chef Jaw? I don't know who that is. Well, it is true, Drag, that epipolar people are, well, like Sasquatch earlier came in and said angrily, like, thanks a lot for not appreciating my name Sasquatch, but I came up with it in a moment of inspiration. Peace out. What the hell? Does he think I was insulting his name or something? That's like the kind of thing that epipolar people might totally get completely wrong, right? At no point during that previous stream was I shitting on the name Sasquatch, which I actually think is a cool name. At no point did I shit on it at all. But I must have said something that he made an FE leap about and concluded I was, I don't know. But, you know, there's identity stuff going on there, I guess. It's like when I see people who I think have mistyped themselves and are quite meowy about it, about, you know, telling others that they're that type that they mistyped themselves. I try never to say anything about it, like in streams or whatever, but I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what to tell them, because it won't do any good to tell them you're not that type. Because obviously they've got a lot of their identity put into it. And I'm much more like dullest now than I used to be in that regard. I used to be when I was doing this early, like years ago. If I would tell people all the time, "You're not that." I was just knowing it for like a couple minutes in the chat, even. So I've become much more responsible in my assessments and words and stuff over the time. Well, Drag, alright, so this guy you're talking about, he is one of the few men in the psychology field who isn't ideologically infected and has been helping battle these group identity cults. Okay, well, if Sam Vaknin says we are doomed because of basically critical race theory, identity politics, and that sort of stuff, he's wrong. In fact, those you should see all those arguments become passé within about 5 years. They're passé in the debate community already. Like, they don't win rounds anymore. They did for a little while, about 9 years ago. But society follows behind the debate community in terms of what arguments win by a good decade. Yeah, Oliver Linehan's right. I mean, it's true. In a world where everybody's either alarmist in an NI way, or sort of don't give a fuck in a TE way, or just sort of Dunning-Krugery about politics, or just going along with what's become normalized in an FE way. Blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of different ways in which people are wrong. But one thing that we can all certainly agree with is somebody who says we're doomed is no kind of leader, and nobody that you should be listening to for guidance about anything. Because if we're doomed, then why bother? Instead, you should listen to me, who has an actual vision about how the future ought to be, not a vision about the catastrophe that is unavoidable. I'm no negative Nancy, nor am I a pessimistic fatalist of some sort, nor do I like that frame of reference, and NI is not capable of processing complex dynamic systems like reality in order to know how it's going to turn out in a few years. It doesn't work like that. Even if you feel like it does, it's confirmation bias. I think people are considered rude because people fail to notice that I spent my whole day thinking about that something, and it was important to me to ask that one weird question out of the blue. I mean, the thing is, my answer to the problems he lays out is if you cherry pick a set of data and particular vectors and mechanics and draw conclusions about the progression of society by extrapolating from those mechanics you chose, you can successfully prove your prediction about anything, pretty much. That's he already went wrong, is what I'd say. He already took the wrong direction down the road. That's not how you think. That's how you intuit. And that's not a good way to assess reality. In other words, pointing to societal problems right now is not a good way to justify conclusions about how society's fucked, okay? First of all, if you're right, then stop, then, you know, either, does he think he understands the solutions to the problems he lays out? If not, and he's just laying out problems saying, can somebody else come up with those solutions? Well, yeah, I can, and will. I'll do the best I can to fix the world when I'm president. For sure, I will. I'll do my very best. And my very best will accomplish a sea change, discursively, that is necessary before we can move forward on any other practicality. Without the right framing, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters, right? Without the right framing, everything's fucked. And that's what it boils down to. You just look at our experience with the doctors, me and Rachel's, and their attitude towards health insurance and stuff. Without the right framing, everything is fucked. Nothing survives a lack of framing. Everything is subjected to cancerous, virulent death from a lack of framing. Narrative needs to come first. Discourse needs to come first. Things need to be put in their place discursively in the world. And I am the man to do that. And I need a huge pulpit so that everybody hears me. I need world mic power. I mean, you're the one who said he says we're doomed and that he justifies it with problems he lays out. I didn't make any assumptions. I went off what you said. I worked with what you gave me, informationally. Nothing more. If you didn't want me to believe what you said, you should have said something else. If it was obviously untrue, then I wouldn't have believed it. Okay, so is that title representative of what he actually says? Is it reasonable of me to conclude that that's the message of the video, if that's the title of it? And operate on the assumption that he lays out a case for what the title claims, and that you articulate that case right there when you articulate that he lays out problems in the status quo. I mean, yes, it's very reasonable for me to conclude all of that. And none of it was me jumping to making assumptions. It was me working with the information you provided. Hey, you don't want me to call you a bad mother, do you? I'll do it. I'll even call... Okay, I won't start at bad mother. I'll start at pretty good mother. And you can work your way down to bad mother. After pretty good mother, you can be medium good, or mediocre mother, then fairly poor mother, unacceptably poor mother, and finally bad mother. Okay, I know you asked me if I would look at it. I know you did. People always want to show me something that, like, I don't know if this is this thing, because I haven't seen it, right? When I do look at those kind of videos people want me to see, this is what I get every fucking time. Here are a set of clues. Now look here. When we put these clues next to each other, it paints a pretty damning picture. Okay, what about, it's like, what about things that aren't consistent with your point here? If you're going to make this interpretive link story, I was in the middle of rapping Bobby Brown. I was setting a world record, okay? Incredibly important. Now, every newspaper in the world will have a screaming headline tomorrow. Eric sets new world record. I don't know. Maybe this video is different, good mother, but I've seen so many of those things, and people always send them to me, and I'm like, okay, let me check it out. But in general, the person who's sending me the video is sending it to me because they want me to agree about something, believe about something, or they're sending me some sort of, like, clearly team-based thing, but not always, I guess. I don't know. People ask me to look at a lot of videos, and I generally don't look at them. I certainly don't want to do it during a stream. Maybe I could look at it later, but it would need to get in a very long line of videos. I probably won't look at it later. I think I've seen that guy before. I've heard the name. Sounds familiar. I think maybe he's the pool boy at the country club. Is that who it is? Wait, I don't have a country club. Okay, alright. Alright, good mother. You just want to compare solutions, huh? Alright, fine. I don't mean to be a prickly prick. I can be a stick in the mud sometimes. a sticklier stick than the stickiest stick that's in the stickiest mud in the stickiest town in Sticktown. But other times I can be non-prickly, non-stickly, somewhat less than wiggly. It's so weird when I was done with that rapping thing earlier and I went inside and watched the basketball game with my dad. I kept hearing the basketball announcers commentary as raps. And I'd like add little things onto the end of them in my head. I was like, okay, that's annoying. That's annoying. I don't want to be stuck in rhyme mode forever. What I do realize though from earlier, my throat's feeling alright, whatever. Is like if I did it at the right time, like at the beginning of a cycle, when I'm fresh, I could totally set the actual world record for freestyle rapping. I could do 37 hours. I could do 38 hours. If I got started. I'm not a white man, good mother. I'm fluidly transracial. My race changes all the time. Right now, I'm Ecuadorian, but I feel like I'm changing, so maybe not be Ecuadorian for much longer. Okay, well, drag, the thing is, when you say more on improving yourself, I sometimes understand pursuing my polar is the best way to deal with certain kinds of situations. No, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what you want to do to improve yourself. But it's pointless to feel so ridiculous and unoriginal and absolutely refuse doing it. Because, of course, the thing you are consciously trying to do is not real FE. You'd be imitating the affect of FE, not actually engaging in any kind of extroverted feeling interface. The extroverted feeling interface is a perspective. It's an attentional angle that, like, so if you're FE Tool and you're like Rachel, she's hyper aware of how her behaviors impact everybody around her. And like this might be bothering Mia, right? And so they let themselves sometimes be uncomfortable or something because they don't want to they don't want to be seen as the problem or not the team player. FE front stack you could describe as seeing the world through be a team player frame of reference. And if it, depending on where it is in the stack, that can manifest as being hyper aware of how you might not be a team player by not putting others first. And in those instances, you have sometimes the gift style interactions like Rachel and I have, where like she sells her hair to buy me a watch chain and I sell my watch to buy her combs. And then we go, oh, well, now we both lose. What if I wrapped the announcement sports newscaster Howard Cosell style? Some people on YouTube stream and react to games to avoid copyright. You could wrap. Yeah, I could. I'm actually. I'm not planning on doing it as a rapping, but I do have a plan currently to figure out how to get. Well, I think it shouldn't be too difficult. I think it should be easy enough. But I want to get Delilah, who's gotten back into World of Warcraft and is playing a lot of it. I want to get her to play that and have her screen being broadcast and me doing commentary of her playing World of Warcraft. I think that'd be. Is that what's called Gift of the Magi? My bad. I called it the wrong title. Oh, Henry. Your first name's not O. I don't believe that. Your parents just named you a letter as your first name? No, FE4 people are not uncomfortable. No, it doesn't mean they make people uncomfortable. No, it doesn't. Absolutely not. It just means that, like, I mean, it's hard to explain a polar to anybody. It's hard to explain to anybody they're polar. But it's not really so much the affirmative course of action that you presume it to be or position it to be there. Like this nodding and smiling and meowing and meowing. It instead is a perspective that you don't really care what either way. You'll go along with what other people want. And it depends where it is in your stack as to how that manifests. Like third slot is most selfish with the FE, so it doesn't really manifest like that. But it does still a lot with me too, but less so than first or second. Maybe even less so than fourth. How does an INTJ deal with the argumentative nature of your type without calling you a smartass? I thought you dealt with it really well, actually. Yeah, you showed good FE. I mean, that's the thing. You got to show good FE. You got to show. Um, well, what you did, you have to say like, okay, I'm not trying to get you to watch something that disagrees with you so that you can learn something I want you to learn. Which is not what I want to do, okay? I have that happen to me a lot, and it's just like, no. What you want me to learn is you want me to come to the same conclusions you've come to from the same pieces of evidence, but I already suspect I won't, etc., etc., etc. And so it's like, I kind of jumped to the conclusion that that's probably what you were doing, but you said, no, I think that you're smart, you can provide insight into what he's talking about. Oh, okay, so you want me to use my action function instead of my receiving function, really. Okay, that's much more palatable to me, right? But I too am, like everybody else, kind of a slave to my function habits, and so, you know, I'm like, nah. Just like Delilah does, she's an ESTP. Every time I tell her, like, you should come over and, man, nah, I'm busy. I'm playing World of Warcraft. Or whatever she's doing. I always tell her, come over and live stream with me. And she says, oh, yeah, I will at some point. Yeah. Right, that sounds fun. But it's never that point in time. And she doesn't want to schedule it either. I mean, you could say Effie Polar doesn't ignore its own opinion because someone else must be right. I mean, Effie Fronstack doesn't pay attention to others' opinions because somebody else must be right. It depends. It pays attention to other people's opinions because it cares whether somebody else is right or wrong, in part. Like, so, for me, Effie comes out when I tell somebody, no, they're wrong. That's a way of establishing that I'm the expert, right? That's an FE thing. Like, I'm setting perceptions in some regard. And it's also a way of, I guess, policing communication, saying, no, we're supposed to use communication for the purpose of discursive progress making rather than something else. And I forget what I was saying about that. I want to eat a bite of food from one of these plates over here, I think. I've got a couple of choices. Couple of choices to choose between here. And I'm going to choose spaghetti and meatballs. Or I just gotta choose a meatball. Maybe two so I don't have to just come right back. Es muy delicioso. It was as delicious as a mafioso. You know, I sometimes watch Saturday Night Live skits on YouTube. I get a little mood to watch them. And basically, if the thumbnail, it's not really so much the thumbnail, but I get the title and the length. I'll give it a shot. Anyway, there was one today that I liked a lot. And it's called Mafia Meeting, I believe. But you could very easily call it Space Pants. Has anybody else here seen Space Pants? Well, that kind of links into the subconscious mind drag. So, when I'm establishing perspectives like that, it means I'm aware of what I'm doing because of cognitive functions. If I didn't know about cognitive functions, I would reject the notion that I was doing that probably. And I'd say, no, I'm just right. I don't care about those kind of FE things, or what. I'd probably say that if I didn't know about cognitive functions. And in that regard, when people were talking about the subconscious mind, we're not wrong. In other words, I am driven to establish myself as the expert, the one explaining things. And it's kind of implicit in my cognitive function stack. But I'm also selfish about FE. So I would, without knowing about this stuff, without having a map to explain this to myself, I would almost assuredly be saying, no, you don't have good reason to perceive me like that bad FE thing. Namely, the guy who always wants to be the center of attention, the attention whore / pedant, right? But instead, because I have cognitive functions, I can understand myself through those aspects of self that don't sound very good. In fact, I particularly choose the words that sound the worst to describe it because I guess I've come to truly own who I am, you know? So go ahead and interpret it in the worst possible way. I will too. And, you know, there's a lot of things you can say about me that are true that aren't exclusive of other things that are true. You could call me an attention whore and you'd be right. But that doesn't delegitimize me as a human being. You could call me a detention whore as well. I love being sent to detention. Just give me more. Harder, faster, all the time. Detention. I streamed after with a collection of samples to dissect. Leave if you missed it. Huh. I don't know who you are, good mother. A lot of people around here have their own channels and stuff. I can't click it. It won't go anywhere, see? I never know. You want to put your channel down? I'll make you a moderator so you can put a link, okay? Then I'll unmoderate you when you're done putting a link. Well, it's not always been clear to me who I am or what I want at all or how I want things to go. None of those things have ever been clear to me. They're still not very clear to me. My intentions being good, that's generally pretty clear to me. Oh, was it? Oh, go to channel. Look at that. Wow, you really are a good mother. You've got seeing eyes with which you see things. It's very impressive. I'm very impressed with your seeing eyes. You can look at things and see what they look like by using your seeing eyes. I find that very impressive kind of disguise. Good mother. Look at that.
And you're in there.
Whoa.
And every time.
Hold on, I'm gonna get copyrighted. Good mother's gonna copyright strike me. Then they're gonna throw me in jail. Okay, good mother. You have a video titled, "The quote-unquote black community in America never had a patriarchy, and look how dysfunctional it is." Ay, ay, ay. See, you've mistaken me entirely. You've mistaken good meta-rationalism for your flavor of groupism. That's not what I do, okay? That is not what I do. Why would I try to digest it? It's groupism. We've already discussed it at great length. Okay, good mother. I was kind of joking about that. I didn't think you were going to copyright me. I only got like a couple seconds of your sound anyway, so. Well, Bobby Brown, there's nothing more I need to digest about a video that refers to the black community being dysfunctional, because there is no black community. Individuals are the only things that can be functional or dysfunctional. So there's nothing further to look at. It's just a reification fallacy. It's insane. I don't ascribe to that kind of bad thinking, and I never will. Not because I haven't looked into it enough, but because it's bad thinking. So let's be clear about that. Don't pretend it's something else. No, I get it. You're you use groupism critiques to critique groups who engage in groupism, while yourself reducing those people to groups and members of those groups as though they weren't individuals. So if you say, look, no, I'm opposed to racism. I don't want the black community to be dysfunctional. Well, then you're just being racist. There is no such thing. You need to read my Jones A and B cards. You might say, no, I'm with you on this. Okay, well, even if you are with me on this, you are appealing to a group of people that's not worth appealing to with that kind of shit. You know, it's like you're appealing to so-called race realists, which are people who believe in race but don't like critical race theory. Well, the only way to defeat critical race theory is to shit in its face and insist that you yourself are every race and fuck off. Like, I am Inuit. I'm an Inuit. That's why it's okay for me to call them Eskimo pies. You're not an Inuit. So you don't know. You don't understand the pain of my people. We had to live in igloos for years before the white man came and civilized us. That's probably why you think I'm on your team. I just like making jokes like that. I don't actually believe that shit. You know what? I want to go down to South America and get all those Indians down there to write the white man a letter. Dear the white man, thank you so much for civilizing us with your wonderful colonialism. Boy, we sure loved being forcibly converted to Christianity. That was just like, these wafers and wine are delicious. Prior to your arrival, Spaniards, we never tasted either the body nor the blood of Christ. It's like, wow, are we missing out? This guy is delicious. Okay. Again, good mother, I read the title of your video out loud. That's not an assumption. That's the title of your video. And clearly, unless you're completely lying in the title, you at some point in that video make the claim or operate up the claim's basis that the black community is dysfunctional. True or false? Is that an assumption I'm making? I mean, that's what the title says. Listen, I'm Incan too, Bobby Brown. As an Inca, I can tell you, stay off of my pyramids. They're no Egypt, but they're still mine. Just stay off of it, or you're the next one. I can get my obsidian knife out, chop out your heart, put it in a box, and then the gods and goddesses of the Mayan Incan cultures will exo-chilt it away. They'll come down with all their consonants and their yabbity yabbity yas, and they will take them away. Who is this matriarch challenging Eric's status? Good mother's not challenging my status. A good mother wants me to watch these things before I make any judgments and whatever. And it's just like, you want me to watch a video about how the black community is dysfunctional because it didn't have a patriarchy? Oy, oy, oy. Look. Nobody has either patriarchy or matriarchy, right? Individual families work as they work. Like my parents, I mean, in some sense my dad was in charge, but my mom was too. And if she didn't like something enough, she'd throw a little fit about it. And my dad would always would give in. But I mean, it was a fairly patriarchal house in the sense that my dad's very manly, you know, and didn't want any sissy as a son or anything and stuff like that. But I don't think it hurt. I think it helped me, sure, to have both parents and to have my dad be my dad. But I could imagine turning out fine in a different circumstance, as long as it was good and healthy. I I mean, I'm vastly different than my dad, and yet, to some extent, well, we were both heads of our households, where I had a family and raised a daughter and stuff, you know. But in what way, then, is the patriarchy aspect of it meaningful, since my dad and I are so vastly different in all of our ways? Where's the commonality? Just that we have penises? I mean, I'm not sure what makes it patriarchal, per se. Is it because the child has my last name? That'd be patrilineal. Definitely is that. I was definitely patrilineal. I wanted my daughter to have my last name, for sure. I didn't want it to be hyphenated either. So, in fact, my daughter, though, is also, now she's following my will. She wants her first child to be matrilineal because she wants to keep the Strauss name and she's the last one. Yeah, but, I mean, that's because, not just because he's a man, it's because he's an ESTJ of his generation and a military guy and so forth, right? Well, I wasn't like my dad in raising my daughter at all. Although I could be a dick sometimes, I guess. I was a dick occasionally. I always felt terrible about it when it was. I am grateful of my upbringing. I had a great upbringing. But the point is, so did my daughter. And it was vastly different. In ways that you might call related to patriarchy, anyway. I'm not scary like my dad was. At all. I never yelled. I mean, I never tried to be scary with Delilah. I was always very loving. Very nurturing. Very feminine, really, in my parenting. So, if the patriarchy is so great, why didn't I turn out like my parents? Why am I such an intuitard? I certainly did have a patriarchal household, but my mom was much more equal than you probably think. And my mom was something of a feminist, as I think my dad is too. He's still kind of a feminist. You know, it's like, my dad watches a lot of women's sports that you would never imagine an 80-year-old military ESTJ guy being interested in. You know, it's like he will watch Pac-10 women's lacrosse and shit. You know, Pac-12, I mean. So he's very egalitarian, but it's because I think he sees everybody's individual experience as determinate. Kind of an advantage of being anti-polar, I guess. And he likes the Pac-12 a lot, so he'll watch men's and women's. Because he's a conference fan. And he likes the good teams in the conference, you know, like the Stanford women's team, the Oregon women's team. And of course we're USC fans, but the women's team in the USC isn't good this year. The men's team's good. We just beat Pacific tonight, barely squeaked past them. Ridiculously. It shouldn't have been close, because SC is like 17-4, and Pacific is like 7-15 or something. But we were missing a couple of our best players. Yeah, well, thank you for saying so, good mother. It's a term I came up with a long time ago, and it sort of invalidates a lot of these other kind of notions of parsing out people. So, in other words, part of the reason why assessments on things like race or other demographics are meaningless is because it's always determinate what personality type they are. It's never determinate any of those other group labels you're using. The only way to correctly put somebody into a group without being ontologically assaultive is to do it with typologically. Because that's an accurate description of the mechanics of their cognition. It's not some sort of insistence that they be reduced, that other individuals be reduced to a group that is arbitrary. Because typology is non-arbitrary. The dynamics of groups of the intersectionality Olympics I don't even know what the intersectionality Olympics is, but I'm assuming it's like non-binary and shit like that. The dynamics and groups of the intersectionality Olympics is something I don't think you know how to combat. I don't think I would want to combat it. There's if a bunch of people who are who are actively opposing being constrained by others' labels in one or another binary fashion want to have their own Olympics. Why would I have any opinion about that? Like I give a fuck. I don't care. Have your own Olympics. Don't expect me to watch it. You know? There are plenty of idiots in all various groups. You're very fixated on one group of idiots. That's the problem. Don't be fixated on one group of idiots. That's what makes you end up being like partisan or part of the problem. You're on a team at that point. And you're making a boogeyman out of a group of people to be the other team so you don't have to engage in real discourse about real policy and politics. Before leaving tonight, I just want to make it clear that even though I seem to provide little to no reactions if you develop upon my ideas and or answer my questions, that might be perceived as a kind of disagreement or dissatisfaction on my end. I just want to tell you I really appreciate it when you take time to read my messages. Okay, no problem. That's great FE there, Drag. I didn't think anything about it at all like that because I don't keep in mind things that happened 5 seconds ago on the live stream, really. I might read it later and be mad about it or something if I were to encounter something I didn't see in the stream. Sometimes that happens. Like, I don't see it when I'm lecturing. I see something later on when I'm watching, and I go, "Ooh, that thing there made me mad. I wish I had seen it." But that's not the case here. That's definitely not the case. It's the activists' cry for attention. They are talking about, i.e., a man pretending to transition genders because it offers them an oppressed status. It is, actually, yeah. Right. We need to do the framework. Skygear's probably feeling a little prickly still, so he may have meant that as an adversarial sense, but he's absolutely correct. Talking about discourse correctly right now in the status quo requires us to introduce the concept of framing to people, basically. So that they understand what they're doing, how they're projecting their own frame biases, what it means to construct a boogeyman in order to avoid actually engaging in a real conversation. Well, first we have to talk about that. Once you're done creating boogeymen, then we can move forward like adults. But that does precede the latter step for sure. So if it is little known by most people, then let's change that, Skygear. You and I are in agreement for sure that before I can have a real conversation about politics with anybody, they need to stop creating boogeymen. Because that dismantles or unravels the process. Skygear, don't make me do it. I will say it to you. And you have to change your pants again. Don't get prickly with me. I've got the 2 syllables, I've got 2 words lined up. I am not unwilling to say them to you. I know. It's a bit of a nuclear option, but I will go there. You know which 2 words. Words that rhyme with no sa. But it's true nevertheless. Like with you, we might be able to talk about actual politics, but the problem is, politically in general, not those I can talk with about politics, but everybody, almost everybody, which is insistent that, okay, but at least somewhat you got to come over to this side's frame, Eric. No, I do not and will not. We will dismantle that kind of bullshit entirely. A good citizen is one who's not engaged in finding the bad guys and shitting on them and catastrophizing how bad they are. That is part of the problem. I don't want to hate your made a boogeyman. Alright. I'm sorry, I don't find that politically satisfying. Ooh, those meows doesn't really work for me. You know. It's not my Sky Gears. I'm trying to preserve his clean pair of underwear at the moment. What problem? The problem is that my perspective is not treated like an elective that everybody compulsorily has to take in high school. Then it wouldn't be an elective, Eric. Shut up. I told them, that guy over there, he said that. I told him. I said, shut up, you. And he did. Hi, Trouble Bubble. What a silly guy you are. What a handsome devil. What are you doing here in the middle of the night? Yeah, well, I know, Trigger. I can tell. It gets me a little excited at this point. Now I'm associating it with you getting excited, and I'm having what you might call vicarious excitement. I'm trying to keep my wood down, because otherwise you'd see this massive tent pole right here. Of course you would. Just boom, just pow, wow. Look at that thing. That'd kill a woman. That's what you'll say as you see it. You'd say, that incredibly massive schlong looks like the dangers of the patriarchy. What is that, 8 feet? 8'4", actually. Got 8 feet and 4 inches of penis. I do want to be part of the patriarchy. Because I'm a man, obviously. If there's a patriarchy, great. It helps me. Obviously, I'm a dude. And so, fuck yeah. I have no problem with the patriarchy. I'm just not very patriarchal. Which is to say, I don't like bossing my ladies around or anything. You might say, but you can't steamroll Rachel. Well, maybe in a personality sense, my extroversion is kind of rampant, but I certainly don't try to tell her what to do, and she doesn't let herself get steamrolled at all. It's hard to not make an INFJ raise their eyebrow at you occasionally, because they're going to always be more perfect about shit than you are, you know? CJ? What did we say about joking? What did I tell you about that? You gotta stop with that joking. There's no place for humor. We're talking about important social issues. No time for humor, no time for jokes. Don't you realize girls get pokes? You gotta stop that. Girl lives matter, okay? Chick lives matter. So men need to stop fucking all the women to death. That's the problem with our society. You know that every woman in society who becomes intimate with a man ends up dying eventually? We can only assume it's from excessive penis exposure. Yeah, joking is patriarchal. When you make a joke, CJ O'Connell, That's just another way you're trying to rape me. Funny, I guess you must have typed that before I spiked it. Oh, Bobby Brown. I mean, I'm definitely not domineering at all. I am the extrovert. So what you see between the two of us is a guy who thinks this is his form to say what he wants to say all the time, and sometimes doesn't give Rachel a lot of room to talk and stuff like that. But that does not mean in any way, shape, or form that I am domineering towards Rachel. I'm not that kind of person at all. I'm not like my dad. I don't get mad at my partner, really, at all. Well, yeah, because it is true that I want somebody who listens. But it's also true that my daughter does as well. She's an ESTP, and she's quite a talker. And she also gets with introverts. That doesn't mean I'm domineering. It means I'm an extrovert. Like ENTP males work better with INFJ females as opposed to ENTP females with INFJ males, as the male dominant energy is strong in female ENTPs and can scare away the more often soft INFJ male. Female ENTPs, yeah, okay, yeah, I guess the male energy is big in them. I'm not domineering. Why do you keep using that word? I'm a big personality, and I'm not going to let people push me around, but that doesn't make me domineering. Okay. Good mother. If I want to put my talent to use, I should look at this Sam Vakrin video about how we were doomed and then compare solutions with you. That presumes that I'm going to agree that we're doomed. We've already discussed how that's not the appropriate way to think and why. I mean, I'm assertive. I assert dominance around here to a certain extent. At least I'm not going to let anybody else come in and be dominant. And I learned early on in group management around YouTube that somebody is, and if it's your channel, it better be you, you know. But early on in my career on YouTube, I tried to be too inclusive, too egalitarian in ways that didn't end up working out. But I'm less so now, I guess. I don't view myself as an alpha male, you know. I don't view myself as somebody who wants to go out there and necessarily take charge or whatever. I was just wondering what alternative solutions I have rather than the word doomsday. Okay, but I mean, I still have to agree that the things being articulated are problems. And if they're problems like the ones being articulated in Good Mother's video, then we know it's a reification fallacy to begin with. So maybe I'll check it out. I don't know. I've got a lot of people who say watch this video or that video. Because I've talked about it enough on this thing that I'll probably check it out. I'll check it out. Maybe I'll make a video reply to it, okay? Sam Backends, why were you back then? Why were you doomed? Okay, fine. Maybe I will. But not impossible. What type would you say is most likely to say they're an alpha male? ENTJs? Possibly ENFJs? ESTPs? Possibly ESFPs? Well, who are you clickbaiting? I mean, that's called race baiting. You know? It's like, let's say I were to put on my thumbnails a bunch of like teenage girls in bikinis. It might work to attract more views, but what kind of people am I appealing to? You know, it's like I might click on that thumbnail too. Who knows? But the point is, I'm not. What am I going to get from that? I'm going to get a bunch of people disappointed by the actual content of the video. It's not going to do me any good. It's going to make me feel like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. Alright. I've got the URL here. I can put it into the browser and have it open in another tab for when I end the stream I'll watch it. Pew, pew. And then I'll just push pause. Pew.
No,
Now push pause. In a deranged world, mental illness is positively reinforced. The environment no longer provides health cues or unscripted exposure therapy. Okay, well, is this the deranged world? Because that's not true that the environment no longer provides health cues. I don't know what unscripted exposure therapy means. In such a dystopian bedlam, narcissism is a value, self-harming with sex and substances is empowering fun, and magical thinking is the only touted strategy. None of those things represent our society, though. That might be true in a dystopian bedlam, and I would note that he doesn't indicate that this is the deranged world or dystopian bedlam he's talking about. It is absolutely not the case in this world that magical thinking is the only touted strategy, nor is it's absolutely not the case that in this world narcissism is a value. It's absolutely not the case that in this world self-harming with sex and substances is empowering fun, or that it's projected as such. It's absolutely not the case that people who use substances are self-harming necessarily, which is sort of implied here but not stated directly. The contemporary war between the genders is a private case study of this mass insanity. There is no such war. It does not exist. The metaphor he's making is completely bullshit. And it is not a private case. If it's a contemporary war between the genders, he's talking about a public matter because he's not talking about individuals. It's a private case of this mass insanity. What? The locus of intimacy is shifted. It is no longer associated with sex, only with talking and light touching. That's not true at all. Avoiding or postponing sex now signals being serious about a partner one finds likable or loves, and a state of sobriety and having committed to a relationship. That's true. Men and women hate each other. True, he says. That's absolutely, completely fucking bullshit. But everyone hate everybody else. Ideology trumps science. That's absolutely, completely fucking bullshit. I mean, for this guy it does. Ideology trumps science for you, Professor Sam Backman. No doubt about that. You're speaking entirely in metaphor and apparently unaware of it. Because this, there is no disputing, is an incredibly stupid man. Self-centeredness is utterly uprooted community. No, it's not. Aggressive, even violent tribalism and partisanship rip us asunder. Partisanship does rip us asunder. But that is not due to self-centeredness, and those things aren't linked at all, so they shouldn't be in the same paragraph. Higher education teaches nothing useful only in the liberal arts. Is that the case? Inculcates self-harm. Not true. He's presuming the thing that he's trying to accuse of being self-harm has already been a decided point. It's called begging the question, and it proves what I've just been saying, which is this guy's a fucking idiot. Infantilism and its tender charges. Now, it may do that. Students have taken over as in a replay of Mao's Cultural Revolution. Not true, except in certain places, perhaps. and such a toxic cesspool writ large. This is a toxic cesspool writ verbosely. Okay, this is a turgid but toxic cesspool of rancid, ill-intended, hateful verbosity. Don't make any mistake about it. Don't believe it to be anything else. That would be wrong. Such as owning a dark triad personality and become positive adaptations. Somebody who's fired. Nobody says that except this guy is imagining that the world is saying these things. Is it in fact the case that mental illness is positively reinforced? Fuck no. I'm with somebody who's actually mentally ill. If you think in any way, shape, or form that the modern world positively reinforces actual mental illness, you are fucking stupid. There's no doubt about that. Professor Sam Vaknin, dumbass, dumb man, who cannot tell metaphor from actual language apart. What a fucking idiot. What an absolute fucking idiot. Shame on him and everyone who listens to him. Absolute fucking moron. Complete tard. No doubt about it. Fancy words, complete tard. For the reasons I articulated. He's making a bunch of claims that aren't true. That are conclusions he wishes had been established. And so he's just begging the question. Like a fucking tard. That's exactly why I didn't want to look at this shit, right? Because it's fucking stupid. As for the reasons I articulated, which are very good reasons to think he's fucking stupid, but with fancy vocabulary. God, I can't believe you got me to actually look at that guy's thing. This is why I don't look at that shit, because it pisses me off when somebody's like, he was convinced that this guy will convince Eric. No, he just convinces me that he and you are retarded. That shit is so goddamn dumb. Can't you see why? Your fucking, alarmist metaphor is not an adequate substitute for actually thinking. Alarmist metaphor and fancy words is not good thinking. For fuck's sake. The solution that you want to brainstorm with me is stop watching that fucking tard. There's your solution. I brainstormed your solution for you. Stop watching that tard and maybe you won't believe in dumb shit. This is why I don't look at shit like that. Makes me mad when I look at it and it's just like, oh, does the retardation run this deep? It's boogeyman worship. This is another example of boogeyman worship. I don't like that. That's what's wrong with the world. Boogeyman worship. Stop it. Stop fetishizing your boogeyman. Stop creating a totem of alarm that you can hate. It's fucking stupid. God. People want to be like, God, if I could just blame this group, then I won't have to think. That's true, but it's not a good thing. I'm too emotional to be of any use. Did you not hear the words I said about why that guy is so fucking stupid? It has nothing to do with my emotions. None of the justifications I gave you for why you shouldn't listen to that guy referenced any of my own emotions. So if you think my emotions are relevant, this is another example of you being fucking stupid. You could respond to the actual warrants I provided you instead of dismissing them because you don't like my tone. But instead, you're That's right, fucking stupid. Too emotional to be of any use. I'm not trying to be of use anyway, okay? My goal in life isn't to be useful. It's to be cool, okay? That's why I'm so cool and so useless. Because that's my goal. I spent years working on goal setting and goal meeting, and I finally met my goal. I'm finally completely useless. Thank God Almighty, free at last. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm completely useless. It's not easy to be this useless. You gotta work at it, okay? See this brick wall? It didn't build itself. I had to be extra useless for it to manifest. I pulled it off somehow. I was about to be useful one day, and then I said, whoa, whoa, whoa there, Eric, what are you doing? And then I wasn't useful and saved the day at the last minute. Except it's okay to be useful to kitty. Oh, yes, what a wonderful kitty you are. I love you. If everybody could see you, they'd love you too. Why? Because you're so cute. You're so adorable. You're adorable. Like Laura Dern on Quaaludes. What's so adorable about Laura Dern on Quaaludes? I don't know. Just go with it, okay? Is she not as adorable as Laura Dern on Quaaludes? She is. You can't help it. Yeah, kitty-induced ontological collapse syndrome, or KIOX as it's called, in which whatever was happening just fell completely into a garbage pile because kitty cuteness overwhelmed me. Oh my God, I have to love you with my heart. I must love you with my heart all the time now. Because you're so beautiful and wonderful. Do you see my kitty? Oh, my wonderful kitty is so wonderful. She completed all of her wonderfulness classes at wonderful college. And she got her master's degree in being a wonderful kitty. Do you see her over there? Oh, wonderful kitty. Wonderful, wonderful kitty. Having wonderful times. Always cleaning yourself. Making sure you got clean lines. Wonderful, wonderful kitty. Yeah, you're a wonderful kitty. So soft and good and true. It makes me want to pet you with my hand. Yes, I do. Oh, you make me have FI, kitty. I'm having FI right now. Watch out, everybody. Might get a little moist in here. Might get a little bit moist. Like the tender parts between your thighs. You get moist every time I say two important words. The first one, rhyming with the word so. And the second one, rhyming with the word ca. And those two words, of course, that will moisten even the driest of panties. What did I say? I don't even remember. What am I talking about? I don't know what I'm talking about, so don't hold me to it, whatever it was. I don't know. I'm tired, okay, so I can't remember more than about 3 seconds into the past. The past is a long time ago. And I do agree with what, but don't like the sentiment. That's true what Sky Gear says. If you listen to me, you're gonna argue me out of your fucking stupid part. I will retract those statements if you listen to what I'm saying and respond to on point even. What are your thoughts on Joe Rogan in general? I don't really watch him at all. I don't really have any thoughts about him. He seems to interview interesting people, but Sky Gear, shh, shh, shh. Don't. Oh yeah. Okay, now he's got some cleaning up to do. I'll just chat him up for a while. What am I agreeing with almost? I don't even know what I'm talking about. Things are so hard, I can't manage it anymore. Oh, I know, the pictures of the cat. I get it. I understand now. I finally understand and agree with Boba Fett for the first time ever. Oh, what's true but it's not a good thing? What was true but not a good thing? Your mom's face? I wouldn't say it was true. I mean, I agree it wasn't a good thing, but I guess it had to happen. Your mom was quite aggressive with me. I mean, I've seen Joe Rogan be like the host of a show before. Weaponizing groupism's already being done. Well, sure, but nobody has any high ground who's doing it, right? So the point is, when you're making an affirmation, you're saying, I affirm that this thing is good or the correct position or preferable to the status quo in some way or preferable to your status quo. So I'm saying there's no way to affirm something correct via those mechanisms, what you call boogeyman hunting, you know. Boogeyman hunting can't defeat boogeyman hunting. In this case, there's no fighting fire with fire. The problem is the forest is on fire and we need sane people to use water instead of more fire. That's the point. You know, being fiery about the other users of fire isn't going to help. You've got to be, if you're going to be fiery about fire in general, like me, right? So I'd be just as mad at somebody who sent me a bunch of shit that was in favor of that stuff. I'd be just as like angry and yelling at them because I want to drive home the point that there are consequences to being recklessly wrong around me, especially if you pushed me into looking at this stupid shit that I already correctly anticipated was exactly what I thought it was going to be. It's exactly what I thought it was going to be. Exactly the thing I was describing that I didn't want to see. I mean, it's not exactly what I was describing, but it's an example of exactly what I thought it would be. Exactly what I was describing was a little different than that. But that what I just looked at is one variety of the thing I was describing. So, except instead of actually providing like realities that are meaningful pieces of evidence of anything and hoping you're gonna put two and two together and draw the same NI conclusion, that guy just FEs it, just FENIs it. Like, here's a fancy way of saying nothing without any justifications, making bullshit metaphorical claims that are wholly overreaching and absurdly alarmist and hoping to get by on verbosity. It's like, oh my god, pew pew motherfucker. Pew motherfucking pew. Because that guy's got 200,000 fucks fooled. I don't have 200,000 subs. But that guy does. Why? Because people like hunting their boogeymen. But that's the problem. Of course, he to me, he's a fat, lame deer walking right in front of me. But it's fine to hunt a boogeyman if they're actually being a boogie. Because you're not creating anything. You're not making up a make-believe enemy that is monolithic in their thinking and represents a movement against which you must stand and a bunch of other bullshit, right? I mean, what do you think motivates these terrible enemies of yours? Because the thing is, I don't even care. I'm not telling Democrats and Republicans, don't cling to your positions. I'm just saying, don't vote. Either vote for me or don't vote at all. That's fair. Because if you don't vote for me, then you're not qualified as a voter because you're getting it totally wrong. That's fair. Rachel Lapalosa has a thing on personality database. That's funny. All those statements have piles of evidence. Okay, so the fact that you think one can substantiate the following kind of claims with evidence proves that you are not thinking well, because certain kinds of claims can be substantiated evidentiarily, and certain kinds of claims are metaphorical, should never be stated as claims because they can't be substantiated accordingly. And that's what we're looking at with your Mr. Idiot, okay? He's presented unsubstantiable claims, and you are saying he's got piles of evidence to substantiate them. You can't substantiate metaphorical overreach no matter what you do. Right? It's not possible. It's not possible to substantiate metaphorical overreach. So, when he says here, in age-arranged world, mental illness is positively reinforced. Well, okay, so you can read this as being anytime a given world is deranged, mental illness is positively reinforced, in which case we conclude that our current culture does not positively reinforce mental illness, although it may positively encourage medication consumption. But that's not inherently a problem unless that medication consumption makes the people's lives bad. You will hear me arguing against pathologizing things that are not pathologies. And at the same time, you will hear me correctly arguing that people genuinely have real mental illnesses. It's a real thing. It's not the fact that they've been encouraged to become mentally ill by society or some other incredible bullshit like that. And in fact, they are successfully treated by drugs. The idea that the environment no longer provides health cues. What does that mean? If you're going to make that as a claim you want to substantiate, because, for example, I'm not sure how the environment ever provided health cues, or why it wouldn't anymore. Is it not the case that people will still say, hey, you look like you're not feeling well? Wouldn't that be something in the environment giving you a health cue? Unscripted exposure therapy. So this is specifically about COVID stuff. I agree that it is bad for society to reduce our natural immuno response approach to a given virus unless it poses substantially more risk than COVID did. But note, it is not the case that the environment no longer produces unscripted exposure therapy. As a matter of fact, we are exposed to viruses all the time anyway, despite the fact that we take these insane, stupid health theater measures, right? In such a dystopian bedlam. Our society is not a dystopian bedlam. There's no way you could substantiate that claim. I mean, do we live in North Korea? That might be substantiatable if you were to claim North Korea was a dystopian bedlam. But because North Korea exists, to claim that the modern society that we live in currently, in which he's able to make this video that gets 12,000 views in a day or something, and continue to propagate this sheer idiocy, is certainly not a dystopian bedlam. If you want to claim it is, fuck off. It is not the case that narcissism society-wide is upheld as a value. That you might be able to establish some instances of it. That's called proof by example and fallacious. If you say it's got piles of evidence proving that narcissism is a value, that's exactly the sort of cherry-picking behavior I'm telling you about beforehand, which is, yes, you can put together a bunch of individual cases of something and then try to make the claim that this represents an overarching pattern that is predominant in the matter, but you have to actually make a determination about what's determinate. You can't simply conclude that because you've chosen to find these things and highlight them so much that they must be that important in the larger dynamic, chaotic system that is reality. This guy's obviously not thinking these things. He is not a smart person. What is wrong with the fact that avoiding or postponing sex now signals being serious about a partner? Why is that bad? And that is not indicative of the fact that the locus of intimacy has shifted. It is no longer associated with sex. It just means that people take the intimacy of sex seriously when they want to be with a person as a partner, whereas they don't consider sex intimate when they don't. That's the natural, correct, reasonable conclusion to draw about it. Unless you have an agenda you're clearly trying to push, in which case you don't deserve any respect from me, but merely contempt. Men and women hate each other, comma, true, period. That's not true. I mean, there's a bunch of men and women in this stream who do not hate each other at all. The only person here who shares this general sense that there's a big problem with the left and everything having to do with women or gays or any kind of progressivist stuff is typically Leaf Trimmer. You know, he's very much like that. And he's wrong to be like that. And it makes him very bitter and chip on the shoulder, you know. Because men and women don't hate each other, except for people like him. And it's not the case that everyone hates everyone else. This guy hates everybody who doesn't agree with him. He hates the fact that some people allow ideology to trump science, except he's doing exactly, well, he's prioritizing ideology here, not necessarily over science, but instead over reason, which is vastly more important than empirics, as I discussed earlier. Power is the Holy Grail, not love. Why should love be the Holy Grail? I mean, power has always been the Holy Grail in human civilization. Was it not the case that Rome had an emperor who had a lot of power? Was it not the case that they imperiously marched their way through Europe, conquering other peoples and establishing themselves as the rulers? Is it not the case? Well, yeah, of course it is. Now, power is no more the Holy Grail now than it ever was before. And it's only the Holy Grail for some people. Obviously for this guy, otherwise he wouldn't project it onto everybody. For me, the Holy Grail is actually fame, not power or love. And the Holy Grail for me shouldn't be love. Victimhood supplanted dignity. As what? You know, to supplant something, you replace it. In what role did victimhood supplant dignity? Is it the case, in fact, that people go, let's see, is my dignity important to me? Or would I rather make a big fuss about being a victim and sacrifice dignity? Oh, I'll definitely choose victimhood now, whereas he once would have chosen dignity. And if so, doesn't really dignity mean shut up about what happened to you? Is that a good thing? To maintain my dignity by being silent about being victimized? No. Self-centeredness has utterly uprooted communality. I mean, that's just not true, as you can see by the fact that we're all sitting around here talking as a community just fine. Aggressive, even violent tribalism and partisanship rip us asunder, and I'm a huge part of that. Me, Professor Sam Backman, because that's what I'm doing. And in order to deflect from the fact that I'm doing that, I'm going to include that in my critique as though that protects me from criticism on this matter, but not from Eric, it doesn't. You are clearly trash in my eyes, sir, and for good reason, as I'm articulating. I'm absolutely thrashing, tearing apart every bit of bullshit you're saying, and no sane person can dispute that. Higher education teaches nothing useful. Well, okay, maybe liberal arts educations aren't particularly useful, and I wouldn't advise people to go get them, but it's not the case for something like higher math. If you're going to want to do it at all, for a lot of types, they may need to be taught it. It's not going to be sufficient for them to teach themselves, or may prefer to be taught it. For something like, astrophysics or whatever, if you want to use a big telescope and you want to use the big equipment that you need to have access to be effective in that field, you're going to have to go through academia first. So there are reasons why some people want to go and finish college and why it can be good. There are some kind of sciencey things that it's appropriate to teach and for it to be a college level stuff, and it's non-arbitrary. It's just certain kinds of liberal arts classes that are arbitrary, and they just tend to skew heavily towards intuitive feelers because, of course, those are the types who really leave with no generalizable skill because they've been taught to argue interpretations about literature or something, and they don't use TI, and so they end up doing this NI connectivity thing that I described earlier, where they put things next to each other and make broad claims like this guy's doing. This guy's probably ENFP, I would guess. ENFP or ENFJ, maybe. Yeah, probably ENFJ. So, it doesn't inculcate self-harm. So what this guy thinks is partying is bad and having sex is bad. He's just projecting his own shit at that point. Because in reality, it depends on the individuals. There are certain kinds of individuals for whom, it's like, let's say you got a couple of FI tool people, a couple of ESFPs or ESFP and ESTP, that when they go and have sexual intercourse with one another, in the moment they're reaching a crescendo of action that works for them in their frame of reference. It doesn't work for me at all. I don't want to have casual sex, but a lot of people like me. And in fact, it's not the case. You can have it both ways. So according to this guy here, we've got having lots of sex being a form of self-harm, doing drugs and alcohol being a form of self-harm, which neither of which are, and which it's offensive to conflate the three things because self-harm is an actual thing which involves actually harming yourself, whereas substance abuse is a very controversial point in dispute, certainly can't be established as question begging in this fashion, and have me retain respect for you anyway. It may inculcate some infantilism with its safe space shit, and I think that's probably unfortunate. But again, inculcates a strong verb there because it's denying the agency of the individual students as though they're all just blank slates and endlessly naive and susceptible to whatever they hear in class and just adopt it as themselves, for themselves as the truth. Students have taken over what? Well, I mean, what have they taken over? The college? No. Wildly exaggerated at best. As in replay of Mao's Cultural Revolution. I mean, students in colleges have always been hugely liberal compared to the rest of the population, and wide-eyed and idealistic, and have their heads full of crazy nonsense. It's never not been the case. So why are we making such a big deal of it in this outrageously freaking just outrageously inflated prose and ridiculously overreaching anti-claims and shitty argumentation, this pile of shit here that Professor Sam Vaknin made. 205,000 idiots watch this guy. Unfucking believable. Listen to this last bit. In such a toxic cesspool writ large. I don't feel like I live in a toxic cesspool. The most toxic people who come around me are people saying things like this. That's as toxic as it gets. Around me, in my life. I mean, yeah, I find this shit pretty toxic. I find advocates of this shit can be themselves toxic, not necessarily. Sometimes they're super polite. Regardless, this shit's toxic for sure. Certain mental proclivities, like a dark triad personality, have become positive adaptations, something to aspire to. How many people actually think that? Who thinks that? Is it society? Is it a majority of people? Have you ever heard anybody say that? I'm sure you could find a YouTube video that talks about how psychopaths are people too. And my position on that is those people aren't psychopaths. Narcissists are a real thing, but I would assume it's due to childhood trauma rather than being born that way. Oh, I could be wrong about that. But it's fine that people who self-identify with that have a chance to tell their story too. And you may not like the idea, you may want to make it all normative, completely normative. How narcissist psychopath sees you, his victim, and why. Is it because we've been sissified by women and feminism, maybe? I bet that's why. Or it's because of those goddamn liberals and their socialist ways. Oh, God. They've sissified us, haven't they, Sam? They've sissified us all the way into being enamored with this kind of bullshit. Nobody says that. Who fucking says owning a dark triad personality to become positive adaptation? Who says it's good to be cutthroat and ruthless and stomp all over people in order to get what you want? That's great. I want to be like that. Nobody ever says that. Let alone is it writ large across society, as this guy claims. Now, if after that repeat analysis of why this is completely bullshit, you're not convinced that it's completely bullshit, you weren't listening. You were not listening to me. You need to replay that part of the video multiple times until you hear what I am saying. Because if you heard that at all, there's no possible way you would ever watch that guy again. If you heard and understood what I was saying. Well, I mean, the reason I typed that person as ENFP is because it's really well written in a sound kind of a way, but it's not saying anything. I actually think he's more likely to be an ENFJ, actually, but, ENFP would make sense because they got the NE to have the good pros, but not the TI to be right. But ENFJ, same thing. So I actually think he's probably ENFJ. Yeah. And I hope I think most people here get what I'm saying here, right? Well, it's not talking about that stuff that I don't like. It's the fact that everything he said was false, factually false. It's not like he wasn't being consistent in his reasoning or something. He's making a bunch of obviously factually false, hyperbolic, metaphorical claims to catastrophize the status quo as the result of specific vectors among a whole skew of possible things that explain a lot of different things and may or may not end up representing so disastrously as what he would like to represent things as, right? So, I mean, what else am I going to say? It's incredibly shitty TI, but it's well written. That's got to be ENFJ or ENFP. Or a really fucking evil ENTP, maybe. Of course, narcissism is real. And the thing is, we can talk about what narcissistic behavior looks like. Pretty well. You know, in other words, there are certain behaviors we can concretely define the parameters of and say that's not healthy. That's a bad way to engage with a loved one or a narcissistic behavior. It's good to operationalize our definitions, which means to provide some sort of ways of checking to see if something fits in that set or doesn't. And like that guy has never met a definition he's ever operationalized. I guarantee you. That's his worst fucking nightmare is to have to operationalize the definitions because that would mean he'd have to mean things. Actual things. Yeah, I agree. I totally think narcissists exist. And when I got mad at that doctor whatever guy, I wasn't saying narcissists don't exist. I was saying things like you're talking about don't necessarily link to narcissists. But as I've said in a video since then, I did more thinking about it and I realized I was wrong and missing something important. Because as a matter of fact, there's nothing he says, that Dr. Les Carter, that I disagree with when I'm applying it to my own relationship. It's just when I start applying it as I naturally do first and foremost to public discourse. And he doesn't mean it like that. And that's a sign of my FI polar there, not affording him his due legitimate authority area. When he's talking about actual interpersonal relationships, he's right, actually. It's just he doesn't mean it about public discourse. And when he talks like that, I see myself as being easily described like that in public discourse because, of course, he's not explicitly excluding public discourse. And so I see him as arming people who might attack me with certain kinds of arguments that are totally wrong, unfair, and pathologizing. I'm definitely not a narcissist. I mean, and the thing is, Rachel's mom is. And you can tell the difference because when Rachel's mom decided to take advantage of my leaving the vicinity to change the rules on Rachel, to give her an ultimatum, to take another opportunity to force her. Narcissists like forcing people. And then Rachel called her bluff, called me to come get her. Okay, well, if I can't stay here at all, if I smoke weed, then I guess I'll have to go home. So she called me. I went down there to get Rachel, and her mom and I got in this little rah, rah, rah for a second, and then her mom ceased to engage what I was saying at all, and went and locked herself in her room. And then I said to Rachel, "Look, before we go, I'm not a believer in door slams at all, or in ultimatums or anything like that. So I suggest you just tell her before we go, like, hey, the communication channels are still open. We're not trying to have this be a big deal. You're the one who forced our hand here by choosing to force Rachel into making a choice, And she didn't like having her bluff call. But the thing is, what she said at the end was, how could you possibly choose him over me? If you leave with him, then I'm disowning you. Whereas in the fight with her mom, well, what did I say? The exact opposite to her. Hey, I don't believe in door slams. However, we got the communication channels still open. I don't want this to be all like we hate each other thing. that's the difference between not a narcissist and a narcissist. She thought, I'm going to use the nuclear option to force Rachel to go back to being forcible. Of course, it didn't work because Rachel and I are a team, a couple, we're together for sure, 100%. Her mom's not going to pry her away with threatening her like that because it's like, and she's not going to be happy, like what, going back to live with her mom in South Carolina or something. Her mom doesn't want her to live with her, and maybe she does, so she can do that shit to her. I don't know. But regardless, that's the difference between not a narcissist and a narcissist. Avoiding her, yeah, I don't know what the point is there either. Well, I mean, actually, I do know where the point is, guys. It's above it. It says the locus of intimacy is shifted from sex to talking and light touching. But that's not true. Just because to show that you're serious about a relationship means you're more likely to postpone sex. And whereas if you're not postponing sex at all, it's probably like a drunken fling, one night stand kind of a thing, right? So the point is this. If what he's saying is because people postpone sex with people they're serious about, that means they view sex as non-intimate and non-sex is intimate, then that reasoning, which is I think what he's making there, is the reasoning of a preterm birth of a retarded guinea pig that lost half his brain in a car wreck. So, immediately after it was born, it got in a car wreck. Anyway, the point is, do you see what I'm saying here about the reasoning? I want, if that good mother's still here, or anybody else who thinks they could possibly ever agree with this, like Bobby Brown, do you hear what I'm saying about the reasoning, right? They're saying that he's saying the locus of intimacy has shifted. He's putting his conclusion first. Locus of intimacy has shifted from sex to non-sex. In other words, therefore, we know this because when people really want to like somebody a lot, they postpone sex. That doesn't mean that they don't view sex as intimate. It means they want the intimacy to be real with this person rather than just not real, right? So there's zero reason to conclude that the locus of intimacy is shifted. So when Rachel and I are being intimate with each other, those moments comprise, sometimes we're just lying in bed next to each other and just chatting, and they comprise sexual intercourse. They comprise our alone time, some of which is spent having sex, but not a huge amount of it. When I'm not streaming, when she's not watching something, when we're just lying in bed or taking a walk or chatting or something, that's our intimacy. That's when we're being intimate with one another. The word means something, right? It's our private, emotional time together. And it includes all those things. It includes sex, and it includes touching and talking, and like any sane person, right? Yeah, it's just totally wrong. Okay, but Bobby Brown, did you hear what I was saying, though? Bobby Brown says, good mother gets her information from multiple sources and piles up together the truth from them all. She's not a blind follower of anybody. She's of high intellect. Okay, she recommended that guy to me. And have you heard the words I'm saying about his reasoning and stuff? Are you listening to what I'm saying? Because anybody who's hearing and understanding what I am saying would dismiss this guy as pure trash immediately. Yeah, something like that, Rachel Gerard, I agree. I mean, the thing is, if that's your summation, mission statement about the video or whatnot, nobody should think there's any good reason to watch it. You can anticipate more of the same therein. To tell me that I should watch it despite that and still think that this person might be of value of some sort, you are not setting a high enough bar for people you think have respect for at all. There's no reason to have any respect for that man. You should have nothing but contempt and disdain for him. Yeah, I agree with you about the second sentence being trivially true. It's like, to the extent that it's true as an observation, it doesn't establish whatever he's trying to establish with it. I can tell you that, because he's demonstrating the thing that one could establish from observing that. He's demonstrating why it's bad, not an answer to it at all. No, Bobby Brown. Hey, Bobby Brown, you need to stop and listen to what I have been saying. Well, yes, it was accomplished that she got my take, but you have not gotten it yet, right? So if you had understood anything that I've said so far, you would say, okay, I agree, Eric. I now agree that guy has earned our disdain and contempt with his pretend intellectualism. I mean, and the thing is, what was interesting is, fortunately, that guy is such an agendaist that he couldn't help but put like a manifesto as the description. So he revealed right away he didn't have anything underneath the smoke and mirrors. And we can all agree about that. There's a lot of smoke, a lot of mirrors, and you may have those arranged real nicely, but there's zero beneath it. Are you reading what Skygear is saying? No, because you said specifically he says truth. Even though Skygear and I have both independently established that almost nothing he said on that entire description was true. So the fact that you would still maintain that he says truth indicates you haven't learned anything yet. Right? Certainly you wouldn't want to consider him a purveyor of truth in any way. You should expect to get something like 99% bullshit based on the ratio in the description, which I don't doubt does in fact extrapolate out. Yeah, like I said too, Skygear, in no way, shape, or form are sex and substance abuse forms of self-harm. Self-harm is a specific other thing that's actually harming yourself. He just wants to give that damning vicinity to the word, to those other terms, so that people will think, that must be bad. Look at this. Sex and substance are next to the word self-harm. Wow, I guess that is a form of self-harm. No, that's him trying to get you to fall for that frame walking. I don't let myself get frame walked at all. I mean, the fact that you encourage yourself to get frame walked, Bobby Brown, it gives me the vapors. It straight up gives me the vapors. And you know how I get when I get the vapors? I get like this, I don't want to get like that. You're making me get all, I gotta go move my car instead I get a parking ticket. I haven't said this in a while. Usually I put on music. I'm not going to put on music right now, but if you guys don't mind, if it's possibly okay, and I hate to even ask this of you, because I know it's asking a lot, but if some way in your heart you could find the courage, the hope, the belief, the love to do what I ask here, do you think for a little while you guys could possibly chat among yourselves. I'll be right back. Yes, well, from the description, no, because self-harm means willful self-harm, not incidental self-harm. The will in substance abuse is to do the drugs. It's not to harm yourself. You may be aware that it's harmful, but that's different than purposely harming yourself. Who's taking what too personally? I'm taking something personally? Precious tranquility, you're fucking nuts, dude. I'm not taking anything personally at all. You didn't listen to a word I said if you think I'm taking things personally. Did I say anything at all that linked to me? No. I explained what was wrong with everything he said. Like cutting yourself is self-harm, you know? Yeah. So, like, purchase tranquility, what we're just talking here about, right? He's trying to conflate the concepts of self-harm and substance abuse and presumably casual sex in a way that's both very wrong and actually offensive. There's nothing personal about it. He's not attacking me personally, and I don't find him insulting to me personally at all. I'm not somebody who has casual sex, and I do use substances, but it certainly isn't a form of self-harm. That was on a totally different question, Bobby Brown. I mean, somebody asked me specifically a question about narcissism. And sure, I provide examples from my personal life and answering questions all the time. That has nothing to do with that guy. I mean, offensive to anybody who cares about words meaning things and or people who actually engage in self-harm and or people who engage in substance abuse and don't want to be considered self-harmers, right? Or sex abuse, right? So in those regards, it is offensive because it projects onto those people a frame of reference that renders their behavioral disorder into something it's not. And it's something that's treated differently by society and should be treated differently. The thing is, look, for anything that is a vice, right? For anything that is sort of pleasure inducing, immediate satisfaction inducing, a certain segment of the population will, quote unquote, abuse that, which is to say, not be able to have a healthy relationship with that. For me, I have such a thing, which is alcohol. I can't have a healthy relationship with alcohol, and it's due to the fact that basically alcohol makes me make bad decisions about alcohol. So, the thing is, that's a responsible adult way to understand things. I can have a healthy relationship or an unhealthy relationship with substance use. So there are times when I just absolutely love doing drugs, and there's nothing wrong with it at all. I don't have any kind of sex virtue issues in the sense that I'm certainly not a cheater at all or anything. I'm not that interested in sex. I only like it in long-term relationships with my partner that I've been intimate with for a long time. I'm sure I'd validate on this guy's metrics in that regard. But regardless, it doesn't matter whether I validate on his metrics or not. The point is, if those metrics are reductive to huge groups of people, pathologizing them and treating them as though they are cutting themselves or suicidal when they're just doing drugs and having sex. Those aren't the same things at all. Any reasonable person would find it offensive. I mean, I did mention myself. That's okay. It provides context for what I'm saying, and that's fine. Why do you not want me to mention myself? It doesn't make it personal, right? Because I reference myself in explaining something doesn't mean I'm feeling personally attacked. And even if I am feeling personally attacked, which I definitely am not, but even if I am, that's irrelevant to everything that I've actually said. In other words, you have my actual words that mean things that you could respond to, but you choose not to. Instead, you say your own words that are unrelated to the words I've said, just doubling down on your wrongness further. Yeah, it was hard for me to quit alcohol. I tried quitting a number of times before I successfully quit. But the last time when I did successfully quit, it wasn't that hard. There were a couple of moments of like really feeling tempted, or kind of in the first year or so. But that's about it. The rest of the time was pretty like, okay, I don't have any choice. I'm definitely doing this. I didn't enter into it with any half-assing in my thinking about it. So I correctly concluded that I was actually going to follow through and do it. Whereas in the past, it's like I kind of always knew. I never wanted to lie to myself. I'd always in the past said, well, you'll stay sober for a while and then you'll start drinking again, and that's fine. That's what you'll do when you figure out how to do it right this time, you know. Of course, I never did. And this time I didn't enter in with that kind of attitude at all. I thought, no, I have to stop forever because this is a do or die moment for me in the sense that I just can throw the rest of my life in the trash can in some sense and just be like, I'm just going to drink myself to death. Or I can stop, and those are my only two choices. No one gossips about other people's secret virtues. Yeah, right. Nobody can be addicted to cutting yourself. People may habitually do it, but that's indicative of some sort of anguish that they're trying to transfer from emotional pain into physical pain. It doesn't represent an addiction. Instead, it represents compulsion behavior disorder. But here's the thing. As I was out in the car, yeah, I agree too, personally, about the sex thing, Bobby Brown. I personally agree with you that it's generally kind of sad and unfortunate that at least as we're led to believe in sort of general representations in media, film, TV shows, whatever, that there's a well, I mean, it makes sense though. Like, of course, people are going to not. They're going to be a little slower to settle down than they once were with a single person. There's a lot of people in the world, and it's not always easy right away to find exactly the right person. It's also the case that not everybody is in really happy being in long-term relationships. Some people aren't really cut out for them and don't want to be in them, and are self-preserving types. And even if they are in them, they're kind of distant and try to keep the two things separate. Two people separate, and so you got to allow for the fact that there are some types who really want to just have casual sex. Individual men and women both. And they don't want commitment in relationships, but they still want to meet their biological sexual needs. And so that's perfectly understandable and not representative of the fall of civilization. Now, sure, that guy might point to the fact that, well, in the Roman Empire, when all the rich royalty people were all engaged in orgies, that preceded the fall of the Roman Empire or something. Okay, but that's not the society we have. We don't have a society where everybody's engaged in orgies. We don't have this ultra hedonistic society that this guy's claiming we have. It just isn't true. It just isn't the world we live in. Where are they? And where are these, Bacalian, freaking, what does he call it? What are the words he uses there again? An abysmal. Boy, this guy loves to smell his own farts, doesn't he? Oh, dystopian bedlam. I mean, Bedlam, of course, references originally a specific mental hospital, but it's simply come to mean a place of uniform craziness, I guess you would say. But is that what I keep waking up to every morning? A dystopian bedlam? I mean, who wrote this dystopian future where I am staying up too late to have fun chatting on the internet? God, Big Brother, stop it! You monsters! Stop killing everyone! Oh, the dystopian nightmare of my everyday life is fucking terrible. I can't believe it's come down to this. You want to let that bullshit more muff? Oh, you mean my beard? My beard? Yeah, orgy porgy. I had the kids read Brave New World in 8th grade. I signed it one year, just sort of from remembering it from way back, having liked the book myself. I forgot all the specifics in it, though. When we got into it, I was like, oh, shit. Orgy porgy, what? Okay, well, that's what we're reading, so go ahead. Kids, laugh it up. Laugh it up about the orgy porgies. Get it out of your system. We're not having any yearly orgies, okay? We're going to have no orgies. Everyone else is welcome to organize their own orgy at a TWFP meetup, but Rachel and I will not be there. We will not be participating in any orgies. We're going to wear stickers on our shirt that say no G's. That means we don't go to orgies. Why? Because we have sexual intercourse. One-on-one, we're gonna play that game tonight. One-on-one tonight. Oh, we're a Hall and Oates couple. We believe in playing that game one-on-one tonight and every night. Maybe you're stuck in your Cash App hookup bubble. I mean, in Korea they got compensated dating, it's called. Okay, your orgy's gonna be too hot for us. Some Westerners pathologize their relatively free society because they've been unable to adapt socially. Well, that's what he gets for being a dummy. I mean, that's the thing, Rachel Gerard. I suspect that guy is very much just expressing, basically everything that guy's saying is, I don't like this changing world where things have become more confusing, where norms that I grew up with are dissolved in front of my eyes. I'm not really interested in assessing when and where those norms needed to dissolve, or when and where those norms actually did harm. I'm merely interested in focusing on how the dissolution of those norms bothers me. And I can approach it from two angles. Either it used to be better the old way, or it's bad the new way. And the important thing is, it's different than what I'm familiar with and what I approve of from my childhood. Orgies are pretty hedonistic. I would say yes, orgies are kind of the height of hedonism. I've never participated in one and don't ever want to. Which just goes to show you that in your textbook, movie, TV show, or just regular book kind of presentation, the hedonist is like Lucifer from the TV show Lucifer. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Really though, hedonism falls into two camps. Sex camp and drugs camp. And or gambling camp, maybe. You can put those in there too. Maybe more than two groups of them. Yeah, I used to do that for sure. I look at the indigenous boobies for sure. I found them just as good as regular boobies. Well, maybe not just as good. Because some of them were old ladies. Some of them were, you know. But regardless, they were still boobs. And I believe there will become a new accepted norm of the never gens that you will not be fond of. I mean, there are norms right now that have been accepted that I'm very not fond of regarding face masks and stuff. But you'll note that had nothing to do with the stuff you're talking about. That actual harms came, right, to society, and it came from none of the places that guy and you keep talking about. So why should we listen to you at all? Well, you can do both, but I'm just saying, ultimately, their hedonism will fall into one lane or the other. Because either you're busy doing drugs, you don't want to be involved in the complicated world of sex because it's too complicated for you. Or you're busy having sex and drugs are going to take your mind off that, so why would you want drugs when you can fuck right now? It's going to end up being one of those two things, really. Like, for me, sex sounds like a way of, when I was younger, sex sounds like a way of making my drug trip really complicated and difficult. What's happening is we're seeing a movement of nihilistic hedonism being inculcated into students across the country by the pedagogies of these postmodernists and their socialist ways. Yeah, I know. Freaking college liberal arts programs are super politicized and super fucking stupid. That's all you need to say about it, really. They've always been that way, but fine. I get it, they're kind of more that way right now. But that's all you need to say. You don't need to make all those big fancy word statements, Jordan Peterson. You'd think I would have so many viewers, right? This is one of the crazy things. Is like that guy has got 200,000 subs. Jordan Peterson's got shit ton of subs. But they say shit like my invitation to Jordan Peterson there could have come straight from his mouth. And it's complete horseshit. Complete horseshit. It's not exactly entirely untrue that certain political influences have come to predominate liberal arts universities, and that by and large, what they want to do with their authority they gain as the predominant voice in that setting are things that I find ridiculous, but I don't find them civilization threatening. And if you do, you're the one who's personalizing things, okay? You're making something you're personally caring a lot about into this big boogeyman. I get it. Sex is scary. Girls are scary. Boobs are scary. But that doesn't mean we have to just lock them all up in the convent and return to the good old-fashioned days when men whipped their wives and children like they should have, and people learned their place, god damn it. I mean, liberal arts refers to if you go to school and don't study something real, you're doing a liberal arts education. You could just call it bullshit, okay? There's regular real college and then there's bullshit college. Liberal arts is bullshit college. It's sociology, literature. I was a literature major. Poli-sci, freaking anthropology, like art history, shit like that. Stupid ass shit. Yeah, read these books and echo the politics of the professor and you'll be fine. So what we see with the postmodernist deconstructionism is the dissolving of Western values that are critical to the sustaining of our way of life. And, a lot of people will push forward their victimhood as a way of avoiding accountability for why their room's so messy. When I say to them, have you cleaned your room yet? They say no, because I'm a victim. I say, well, who are you a victim of? And they say, the postmodernists. And then I'm in a quandary, because I hate those fuckers too. I didn't know they stopped people from cleaning their rooms. Now I really hate them. When I asked the other guy the other day, how many dragons have you slain? And he said, 0. I said, why? And he told me, those crazy postmodernists at PETA interfered with my dragon slaying. Well, naturally, I stomped my foot and said, I'm going to talk about this on stage soon and make a video about it. Goddamn postmodernists. IIRC, there was this Pomona college that produces a shit ton of math PhDs or something like that. Referred to as liberal arts thing. I don't know why it would be called liberal arts if it specializes in math PhDs. Math is not considered part of the liberal arts program. My liberal arts shit is just basically everything's soft. It doesn't matter, and it's just interpreted and shit. It's like broadening, but you're not actually learning anything. Liberal arts. Or sociology, which is like kicking down open doors. Or art history, which is like, you cannot be, you gotta be kidding me that that's the degree. Music appreciation. I want to get a degree in music appreciation. I really appreciate the shit out of music. I went to college for 6 years to get my BA in music appreciation. Now, I'm really good at appreciating music now. Well, if your math problem becomes sick, that's the kind of doctor you call. Hello, do you have a PhD in math? This addition problem is on its last legs. It looks like it's choking on something. I'm not sure. You'll be right over. Okay, thanks. Oh, it turns out I just needed to square root it? My bad. No, cleaning your room does make you feel good. For a little while. Although I gotta tell you, it stops working as you get older a little bit. You'd think it would work better. I'd be more clean or something. Instead, I'm just less filthy. In other words, I never really let it get that bad. Although it's gross. It's not unbearable. I used to let shit get worse than I do now, but I don't ever get things really good like I used to though either. I just sort of, you know. Stop making fun of my flagellum. I don't appreciate it. My flagellum is very sensitive. Well, that's a good way to learn, Rachel Gerard. People find teachers that personally resonate with them and then immediately turn their attention to condemning all those around them who don't teach like that teacher. What a great way to learn. You know what they should do? They should make me that teacher. Then they'd be right. You live in squalor until someone's visiting. So you could be part of my one-act play / overarching review called Living Squalid. Living Squalid. Yes, you should. That's why I said unless me. This is me. That's why I clarified that already, Bobby Brown. Unless it's me. I'm special, remember? I have a special tattoo on my forehead with a barcode and some official looking stars and stuff. It just says, this guy. One thing that is true, though, is that a lot of so-called artists would rather deconstruct than construct nowadays. Well, that's true. Who's this we? Me and you. And Oliver and Winston's mom. Just us four. Let's do it. What are we doing? We're going to Denny's? Cool. CJ, you can come too. Will Fat, you're welcome to come too. Bobby Brown, you gonna be nice? You gonna be nice? Yeah, I'm part of it too, obviously. I'm host Eric, so I gotta be part of it. It's the host Eric Club. If you're gonna be nice, you can come with us to Denny's. Otherwise, you guys just stay behind. Back in Canada, wherever you live. You just stay with the Sasquatches in Saskatchewan. If you're not going to be nice at dinner, okay? If you're going to be nice, you can come. We're going to go get dessert, probably, but I'll probably get pancakes. You probably want pancakes, too. You want pancakes, Bobby Brown? You want to go get pancakes together, everybody? No, I'm not buying for everybody. I'll buy my own pancakes. You buy your own pancakes. No, I don't want to make pancakes either. Let's go to Denny's like any sane person would do at 3 in the morning. Why are we even here? We should be all getting in our cars right now. Wait a second. You guys don't even live near me? You need to move. You people all need to move to Los Angeles. Who am I going to go to Denny's with? Myself? No. Because I just eat this food I have over here. God. Oh, James Carlos is going to join me at Denny's in between fingering women who didn't. Fine, but just keep your hands to yourself. I don't want to smell it on your fingers. I don't want you to accidentally put your hand near my nose at any time. Not Danny's. Denny's. Obviously. Haven't you ever heard of Denny's? God. Have you never heard of Mount Everest? Have you never heard of the Eiffel Tower? Have you never heard of your mom? How can you have not heard of Denny's? Have you never heard of Earth? Or being alive? Or anything? Obsessed with math. I know some who works at Airbus. The guy was obsessed with math. Have I never heard of Colio? I don't know what that is. Colio flechetos? Colio flechetos? I don't know who that is. No, Denny's. D-E-N-N-Y apostrophe S. Denny's. Denny's is an archetype. It's one of Jung's primary archetypes in the collective unconscious. It's represented by the Hermit card in the tarot deck, plus the Three of Cups. So those two combined. That equals Denny's. Winston's mom knows all about Denny's. She practically lives there. When she walks in, they go, "Winston's mom, high five!" And she goes around the restaurant and high fives each of the chefs and waiters and waitresses before she sits down. I mean, what I want to do now, I want to clown on that fucking tard that the guy sent me to, you know? See him. Actually, I might cut the thing where I just trash all of his bullshit word salad. Put that up, you know? What's the most slimy sexual type? Probably like a salamander. Maybe a slug, I guess. A slug? No, it's D-E-N apostrophe S K-N-E-E-S. Den's knees. You got it all wrong. Colio fachettos would be extremely indeterminate, as there's probably a bunch of places named. I'm referring to a tiny soup thing place in the industrial zone in a medium-sized Bulgarian town. Actually, Colio fachettos would be extremely indeterminate, as there's probably a bunch of places named after him. Was he famous in Bulgaria? Colio Fachetto? Was he the guy who made Pinocchio? The actual wooden boy? I mean, not the character, not the story. Was he the actual Geppetto? Geppetto? Anybody who spends all day working in the slug industry is going to be a slimy sexual type. I mean, the answer, I would say, the actual answer is probably ENFJ. Like, I suspect Jeffrey Epstein, ENFJ. I suspect Weinstein, ENFJ. I think those two are both ENFJs, but I mean, it's bad to slander a whole type because a couple of bad examples of it, right? Like, I mean, sure, Satan may be an ENTP, but that doesn't make me satanic. Random architect dude. Colio Fichetto's architecture changed my life. That's why I studied it in college in art history. Now I'm an important college graduate. Okay, everyone's ordering breakfast. Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna go outside and smoke a cigarette, can you just tell the waitress I want the lumberjack breakfast, but with double sausage, no ham? Thanks. I'll be right back. Very good smoke. I'm gonna smoke a joint too if anybody wants to join me. You want to go outside and smoke a joint with me? Well, I'm smoking a cigarette and a joint concurrently. Oh, you got cigars and a pipe as well? Okay, bring them all. Let's smoke everything. Let's just smoke everything we can smoke. Let's just find random things outside and smoke them. The reason Satan is an ENTP is because I needed him to be for my analogy there. That's why. He can stop being an ENTP now. I no longer need him to be for my analogy. Now I can go back to being with it. Okay. What he mostly is sad. Why? Because he got kicked out of heaven. And heaven definitionally is good. So good, in fact, you might call it heaven. I'm eating a meatball. Did you know there are no meatballs in hell? Every time you got spaghetti and meatballs and you try to put a fork in your meatball, it just crumbles into a bunch of little meat bits. Meat won't retain a ball shape in hell. I guess that's why they call it hell. When I first heard about that, I said, what? No balled meat? Hey, Elijah, what's going on? Top of the morning to you as well. Well, in Saudi Arabia, you know, a woman's vagina is considered a weapon of mass destruction. And who can blame them? You know, just like the other day I saw a woman's ankle by accident in the supermarket. And I was so aroused, I rushed over to her and pushed her onto the ground, about to try to hump her until people pulled me off of her. Because she was dressed like a slut. You can see both of her ankles. And she had a shapely butt underneath her skirt. Good job, Bobby Brown. Good job. Good job pooping. We can both agree with that. Mm-hmm. See, in Saudi Arabia, a man's lust is like a spark, whereas a woman's skin is like a very dry forest. It's true. Because Saudi Arabian men are so masculine and virile that even the slightest sight of womanly flesh will drive them into a lustful rage not unlike that possessed by the mighty bison as he defends his harem from all comers, and that one summer he has of true bison dominance before that month of fighting and fucking kills him. Bare knee, wow. I mean, in Saudi Arabia, if a woman goes around with all the bare all the way to the knees, she can't make it past the block before she's torn into shreds by ravaging men like a pack of wild dogs is upon her. A lot of people don't know this, but many studies show us that women tend to be most attracted to a man's weenus before anything else. More than money, more than fame, more than power, it's the weenus that attracts the woman. Why is this? Well, evolutionarily speaking, it's because this is how humans ensure long-term, stable domestic partnerships and relationships in which the father of the children stays around. Because once a woman becomes conditioned by the man scent marking her with his weenus, she becomes increasingly docile and attached, while the man grows increasingly feeling responsible to care for his progressively more infantilized woman. As it should be. As it should be. God damn it. Oh, Jordan Peterson. You're born as Jarek Dieterman. Yeah, Clinsiac, yeah, you do. What a lot of people don't realize is the size of the venous glands have been shown to be directly proportional to the amount of pheromones released and ultimately to the ratio of reproductive viability of the male in a number of species. We haven't done the empirics on humans yet, but it would appear to be a distinct evolutionary advantage to have a very stinky weenus. Woman, come here. I'm going to scent mark you now with my weenus. There. Yes, just like that. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. All right. Tonight. All night. Every night. Till the morning light. Baby child, woman, girl. Baby child, woman, girl. Woman, child, baby, child, woman, girl. Anyway, I was thinking on the way in here, I may end up doing this next month. I definitely can set the world record for freestyle rapping the longest. The thing that was hard today, that made today at all hard at all, is that I had to stick to a topic. I had to keep coming back to MBTI as a topic. If I didn't have any topic constraint, and it was the beginning of a cycle, I was well rested before I started the thing, I just got in a bottle of speed, and I got it all set up in advance and everything, I can totally do 38 hours. No problem if I don't have a topic especially. Now granted, it's going to be a long day. It's not for the faint of heart to attempt such a thing. But I could totally do it. And you know what? It might be worth it in terms of attention garnering attempts of things to, I will freestyle rap for 38 hours straight as a title or something. Thanks, Rachel Gerard, and thanks, Elijah. I appreciate it. That's very kind of you. Oh, you got to do speed, Oliver. It doesn't work if you don't do speed. I mean, I could stay up 38 hours without it. I have before, I'm sure. 38 hours isn't that long to stay up because, like, I frequently do 24 or 36 hours staying awake, no problem. Because it's just like I'm staying awake that long. Well, I'll stay awake 24 hours probably pretty soon. But that's with amphetamines, you know. Anyway, I'd be curious to try that 38-hour freestyle rap. Because it's interesting, is I rewatched that. There were some various good sections in it, and you can see sort of the lulls and the changing energy levels, right? Like, there were some sections that I get mad at myself because it's not really very good, and I was like, and then some sections I'm like, ooh, that's pretty good, and then I get mad when it hits another lull. I'm quite confident that I would the whole freestyle would be way better if I wasn't constrained by a topic. Yeah, fresh bottle of Addy Week. Right. It has to be at the beginning. That can't be now. I don't drink alcohol, but there definitely must be cigs. And I don't know how to do Zizek. And there'll be other beverages, and I'll have to get up and stand and walk around, and at some point I'll have to poop during it too. So in that regard, we do have a little toilet out here that Rachel uses. We don't normally poop in it, obviously, but I think before I set it up, I'll get one of those bags that goes in it and a little pad that goes in it, and when I gotta poop, I just stay over there and keep wrapping and poop it, I mean, Rachel made one of those beats that I wrapped over earlier. There's actually one that I liked better than some of mine. She's got a cleaner aesthetic than I do. And I'm always underestimating her, despite my best efforts not to. Anyway, Peter Jordanson. Peter Jordanson makes the same kind of arguments, but for the opposite side. Well, what a lot of people don't understand is these conservative people who are opposing progress so much have a deeply seated ontological dislike of people who are different from them. They're scared and terrified of that. I mean, the way I got it set up now, basically, I guess you could work it during the stream. That's not impossible. We have some stretch of it when she does that, at least. I got a bunch of things set up in advance. But anyway, it's funny how much I didn't like having a topic that I was having to stick to. I didn't expect. I thought covering functions is broad enough; it doesn't really matter. No, I mean that's an excellent question. I'm glad you asked it. You see, what we're beginning to see is the disillusion of the normal sandwich making norms that have consistently supported our human beings throughout time since proto-humans. Evolutionarily, we've always put the meat between the breads, and the cheese should be above the meat. And now what we see is those norms subverted, turned upside down, and we have sandwiches which have either cheese below the meat, or sometimes even no cheese at all. We just don't know what's going to happen. This has never happened before in human civilization, that our evolutionary norms are being subverted in this fashion by ideologies like they are now. When it has happened in the past, things have gone disastrously wrong. Let's put cheese on top of that meat where it belongs. Okay, I'm going to call it a night, everybody. I'm going to go to bed. I'm tired. And you guys are bugging the shit out of me. No, that's not really true. And this is no laughing matter. This is really quite serious. Oliver gives me the best lines that he used to do Peterson imitations. I don't watch him enough to imitate him that well, but thanks, other self. Anyway, I'm gonna call it a night. I just got one thing I need to say. I just gotta whisper to Sky Gear real quick. You guys, the rest of you don't need to listen, but I promised Sky Gear I'd whisper something to him before I left. Sky Gear, just listen closely, okay? Oh, yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome, buddy. You are welcome. That oh yeah was just for you. You're still quivering? You're still quivering. Wow. I don't blame you. You're not able to talk right now. You're quivering. All right. Yeah, I'm sure you are. You're going to record that. You're going to put that on your hard drive and just leave it on loop all day long. All right. Good night, everybody. Sleep tight. Don't let the bread bugs bite. What? There aren't bread bugs. That crazy Eric with his wordplay.